Starting off in the Asia-Pacific markets are mixed today. Hong Kong is leading the gains in the region and it is up 2%. Mainland Chinese stocks, on the other hand, are all in the red. This comes off the back of a tech slide in the US led by Apple after a report that was published showed iPhone sales dropping in China in the first 6 weeks of 2024, a drop of apparently 24% in the period. Apple shares were down as much as 3% in early trading, as investors are also monitoring shares of Apple suppliers in Taiwan and South Korea. Shares of Samsung Electronics fell 1.22%, while South Korea's broader Kospi slid 0.44%. The small cap Kosdaq was up 0.49%. Not really great news on the suppliers front. For more on this now, let's go to Naeem Aslam, who joins us now live from London. He is the Chief Investment Officer at Zay Capital Markets. CIO Naeem, great to have you with us on the show. So what's happening to Apple? Is this a result of stiff competition from local smartphone firms such as Huawei, Oppo, Vivo and Xiaomi? Or is there something more idiosyncratic to Apple that's happening right now?
Sure, thanks for having me. Look, I think Apple hasn't been afraid of competition. In terms of innovation, we all know that Apple lacked that particular element among its competitors, especially if we focus on Samsung with so many different designs, so many different functions from Samsung. And they've always been very much ahead in terms of innovation if you compare them to Apple. So Apple had this particular, for Apple, it was more about a brand, right? So if you have iPhone, you are considered or perceived as a more cool person than having any other phone. So I think that was the image that Apple very much generated from day one. But now I think the product has gone to a stage where everyone is looking at it and then they're saying, you know what, every single particular iPhone that Apple has released in the last few quarters or a year, in the last few years, they pretty much look the same. There is no innovation in terms of a new design. And I think that is what is very much weighing. And secondly, yes, cost of living crisis is certainly a concern for many. Not everyone is looking to upgrade their phone, and especially when the product is that expensive.
Cost of living crisis also playing a role there. Naeem, I do want to ask you a question on US stocks, though, because they seem to go up and up. And I would ask you, how high can markets go? But also, what do you think is the US stocks reaction to a potential Trump re-election? How are they reacting right now, and how would they react?
Well, Trump election is still very far in relation to the market expectations. I think a lot of investors are already thinking that, yes, Trump will be the next president. And they've been expecting this for a while. And then, of course, from the market's perspective, from the sentiment perspective, that would be a bit of a mixed news because, of course, he's going to have that stance towards China where he's going to say, OK, you know, those tariff conversations will come back and then they will have adverse influence. But at the same time, he's also pro-business, he's pro-growth, and he has shown that during his presidency. He hasn't involved the U.S. in geopolitical tensions across the borders. He was very much winding down those tensions. And even on the record, there was no war under his presidency, so which is certainly a good news from investors' perspective, given the fact that what Biden has involved his presidency or his government in Palestine, and then how he supported Israel with everything else. So I think from that particular perspective, there will be a breath of fresh air if Trump comes back into the office.